Once again, thank you so much. Is it there?
Your Excellency, Dame Sandra Mason, Governor General of Barbados, Your Excellency, Mr. Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Mia Amor-Mortley, Prime Minister of Barbados, members of the Cabinet of Barbados, visiting ministers of the Cabinet of the Republic of Ghana, Your Honor, Sir Richard Cheltenham, President of the Senate, honorable members of the Senate, honorable members of the House of Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me, on behalf of myself and my fellow presiding officer, welcome you to this magnificent chamber, the upper house of our Parliament. This chamber, which for the last 56 years has been the home to the Senate, formerly the Legislative Council, has witnessed throne speeches setting out the program of the elected government of the day at the formal opening of our Parliament. It therefore would have witnessed addresses by Her Royal Highness the Queen in opening our Parliament, and when Her Majesty could not grace us with her presence, the Governor General, her representative, would. It was in this chamber that our very own Prime Minister began her parliamentary journey that will see her ascend to the high office of Prime Minister. Lest I forget, it was in this very chamber that I too began my parliamentary journey that will see me ascend the high office I now occupy. It was in this chamber, just over a year ago, that I stood not far from this very spot to receive royal approbation of my election as Speaker of the Honorable the House of Assembly and claim from Her Majesty's representative all those Asian undoubted rights and privileges on behalf of the elected representatives of our great land. However, in the 380th year of our Parliament, dating back to 1639, the third oldest in the Commonwealth, never before have we had a president or international leader address the Houses of Parliament. We are therefore fortunate to live in a period of firsts in our history. Last year witnessed a throne speech delivered by a female Governor General on behalf of a government led for the first time by a female Prime Minister. Today, in our long and distinguished history, This little England, as we are affectionately known, even down to the very similarities of our parliament buildings, would have its first address not from that corridor of that world, but from the continent of Africa in general, and from Ghana in specific, which carries for many of us gathered here great significance, our ancestral home. The historical significance of the connection between Ghana and Barbados may not be readily apparent, but it is strong, enduring, and long-standing. Ancient Ghana, Mali, and Songhai are parts of Western Africa, from which African seafarers voyaged to discover the Caribbean. It is believed that those seafarers landed on Barbados long before the Europeans happened upon this land. Indeed, there is a new theory that the Portuguese may have met such Africans when they made their landfall in Barbados in 1536, and that the name Los Barbados, or Os Barbados, could have referred to those bearded men and not bearded fig trees, as is usually indicated. Elmina Castle, a famous and notorious holding fort in present-day Ghana, later to receive World Heritage recognition as a site of the slave era, assembled Africans, and from there shipped them across the Middle Passage, some 3,300-mile stretch from Ghana to the Caribbean, and introduced to them chattel slavery, which was to be their destiny in Barbados. 2019 marks the 400th year since the Middle Passage. Ghana was a major hub for the transatlantic slave trade from the 16th to 19th centuries. Accra Gold Coast, now the Republic of Ghana, some 62 years ago in March 1957, would become the first black African nation to win independence. The national hero and president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, serving as an inspiration to Barbados, which was 9 years later followed into independence. In Washington, D.C. in September 2018, Your Excellency declared and formally launched the Year of the Return of Ghana 2019 for Africans in the diaspora, giving fresh impetus to the quest to unite Africans on the continent with their brothers and sisters in the diaspora. We Gathering 2020, a vision of our Prime Minister launched this year, echoes similar sentiment and exhort Barbadians living in the diaspora to return home in 2020 to assist in the rebuilding process and the general reinvigoration of their homeland. We are pleased to welcome a son of the Ghanaian soil, not Kofi Annan, renowned international diplomat and civil servant of blessed memory, who once boldly and famously proclaimed that this little nation punched above its weight. I am sure that my colleagues might be quick to remark and add that we are on the road of doing the same once more. But I have the distinct honor and pleasure to welcome a gentleman who has had a long association with the politics of Ghana, stretching back to the 1970s. A former Attorney General, Minister of Foreign Affairs, a man who in September 2017 launched the free high school education SHS policy, which will make secondary high school free for students in Ghana, a necessary investment in the nation's future workforce. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, to address us.
Her Excellency, the Governor General, His Honor President of the Senate, His Honor Speaker of the House of Assembly, Madam Prime Minister, and members of the Cabinet, honorable members of the Senate and of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for this great honor done me the first Ghanaian leader to visit Barbados by inviting me to address this House. I'm doubly honored, as I believe I'm the first foreign head of state to have been given this privilege in this ancient, long-established parliament. I came on this trip hoping to meet lots of people and tell the Ghana story, the Africa story, and especially the story of this year that we have declared the year of return. I'm grateful for providing me with the ultimate audience, the House of Representatives of the people of Barbados. I want to express my appreciation to the impressive Prime Minister of this country, considered one of the outstanding contemporary leaders of the Caribbean, for all the excellent arrangements she has made for our visit and the exceptional hospitality we have been accorded since our arrival this morning. I look forward to returning this hospitality to her in Accra. It is a long way from Ghana, a long way from the west coast of Africa, even in a jet plane, and even on a planned happy journey with a return ticket. It does not matter how often I make this journey, and however different the circumstances that take me, my mind invariably goes to those journeys of more than 400 years ago that brought some of our forebears to the Americas and the Caribbean. Forced, unplanned, destination unknown, and packed like sardines in unimaginably filthy conditions, they emerged into a life of bondage and indignity that was to last for centuries. This year, we're marking the 400th anniversary of the first recorded arrival in America of the 20 people who were forcibly abducted from West Africa. Thus began the start of the transatlantic slave trade, in which some 20 to 25 million Africans were brought in chains to the Americas and the Caribbean. We are remembering this anniversary to underline our determination that never again will Africa allow herself and her people to be subjected to such an obscene, degrading, and dehumanizing catastrophe. Never again shall it be that a dozen or so armed foreigners, with the connivance of a few of our own people, would reduce Africans to traded commodities. We are commemorating the anniversary with what we have termed the Year of Return. I launched the Year of Return at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. last year in November to signify that Ghana is extending in this commemorative year a special welcome to all Africans in the diaspora, to all descendants of the Africans who were forcibly transported to the Americas. Right from the day when Ghana got her freedom and independence from British colonial rule on 6 March 1957, the first sub-Saharan state to do so, we have always seen ourselves as owing a special responsibility to Africans in the diaspora. At that historic moment, our celebrated first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, pledged himself and the fortunes of independent Ghana to the total liberation of the African continent and to the cause of Pan-Africanism. This position has deeply influenced and guided Ghanaian public policy. I'd like to pay a special tribute to Africans in the diaspora, both as individuals and as states. The African Union recognizes the importance of the diaspora, and that is why the African diaspora is designated as the 6th region of the African Union. They might have started as slaves, but the contributions of Africans to the development of the Americas and the Caribbean is matchless. I do not refer just to the slave labor that built American railways and American industries, and generally American infrastructure, as well as those of the Caribbean. I refer also to the roles of Africans in innovation, in science, in sports, in music, in the arts, and in the fashioning of the Americas and the Caribbean. I looked up and took a few of the inventions that Africans in the Americas have to their names and which have improved life for all humanity. I cite these in no particular order of importance: caller ID, call waiting, the fiber optic cable, pacemaker, mop, suspenders, ice cream scooper, lawnmower, ironing board, blood bank, folding chair, automatic gear shifting vehicles, sanitary belt, walker, tissue holder, gas marks, traffic signals, world's fastest computer, voice over IP, closed circuit television. Try and think what life would be without my random list. In the sporting world, Africans in the diaspora have also shown that they're not afraid of hard work and discipline. Football, athletics, and many other games have been taken to new heights thanks to the efforts of the descendants of those who were forcibly transported to the Americas. Allow me to get a little personal here. I love cricket. I follow cricket keenly, and I know that as a cricket lover, I'm on sacred ground here in Barbados. Let me pay homage to George Challoner, Everton de Courcy Weeks, Clyde Walcott, Frank Worrell, Garfield Sobers, the greatest of all the cricketers of my generation, Wes Hall, Malcolm Marshall, Joel Gardner, Gordon Greenidge, and Desmond Hayes. I know that Barbados cricket has not got only past names. There are current exciting players as well. Jofra Archer, Carlos Braithwaite, Shea Hope, Kemar Roach, Dwayne Smith. I salute all of you. I refer to Frederick Douglass, one of the greatest of all Americans, when he says that slaves sing best when they are most unhappy. If that is so, then the world has a lot to thank the black people in the diaspora for much of the music that has kept the world going in the past 3 centuries. All the great singers and entertainment of the past 100 years acknowledge Africa as the source of the rhythm and lyrics of their music. Calypso still captivates, and reggae gets new converts every day. But for some of us of a certain age, the merry men of Barbados remain the defining sound of happy times past. We continue to feel hot, hot, hot. Let me recognize some of the Calypso greats who kept us entertained in the years gone by. Lord Kitchener, Lord Biggener, Sparrow, Calypso Rose, and of course the Merry Men of Barbados. And I dare not forget that Rihanna is from Barbados as well. In Jamaica, Bob Marley took reggae single-handed into the heights and breadths of the world. The rhythms and lyrics still fascinate and captivate. We're happy that Bob Marley's widow, Rita, has found a home with us in scenic Aburi. We were happy that Maya Angelou spent a considerable part of her youth with us in Ghana. And we are proud that W.E.B. Du Bois found a home in Ghana and is buried in our soil. In the 60 years or so since African countries attained independence, it is true that we have not always lived up to the early promise of our forebears. Political instability and abysmal management of our economies have meant that Africa has been described as the sky on the conscience of the world, to borrow the words of a one-time British Prime Minister. Many of Africa's young people have resorted to desperate means to escape from the continent to find a better future for themselves elsewhere. There is no more searing evidence of this than the sad and damning words written by Keith Richburg in the book, Out of America, A Black Man Confronts Africa. He wrote, cataloging his time as the Africa correspondent of the well-known U.S. newspaper, The Washington Post. He wrote that as he stood by a river in Tanzania and watched the bodies of victims of the Rwandan genocide floating in the river, he told himself he was grateful that his forebears had been sold into slavery. He wrote that he was glad that this ensured that he was an American and not an African. To use his words, there but for the grace of God go I. In other words, he was saying, there but for my forebears having been sold into slavery, go I. Those words stick in my gullet. And in Ghanaian culture, I would really have to say taflache, kafra, meaning excuse me, before uttering such words. We who bring Africa to such levels should bow our heads in shame. However, nothing, but nothing, should ever bring us to thinking that the slave trade could be justified. Today is not the day to go into the struggles that African countries have encountered since independence. It is enough to state that there's a new determination to make Africa work, and we are doing so. It is probably worth pointing out that the country where the events took place that drove Keith Richburg's spirits to such low depths, that country, Rwanda, is today justifiably cited as one of the rising countries in the entire globe. We in Ghana have also had our trials, and we are the first to admit that we have not made as much progress as we ought to have done by now, after 62 years of independence. But we can say that with the stability that has come from 26 years of constitutional rule, our institutions are becoming more reliable, and we are building an economy that will stand the test of time. Happy to tell you that Ghana is open for business. There are business opportunities for those who would partner Ghanaians in a fast-growing economy. We're particularly keen to open our country and spread industries across the length and breadth of the country. This is the rationale for government's one district, one factory policy, which is gaining more and more traction as we seek to add value to the natural resources that are spread throughout our country. It is unpleasant and uncomfortable, but it is a fact that Ghana, along with Benin and Senegal, served as the main ports of embarkation of the slaves. It is a traumatic but cleansing experience to see these castles. The majority of these castles are in Ghana, and they are worth a trip by themselves. But we do not offer only unpleasant memories. Ghana is full of stunning views and scenery that we who live there tend to take for granted, but which visitors find breathtaking. However, the most attractive and the greatest selling point of Ghana is and always has been her people, the Ghanaian people. The welcome that you find in Ghana, with due respect to all of you in this house, is unique and like none anywhere else. Our foods are interesting and tend to be once sampled, never forgotten. I suspect I do not need to remind you that we are the home of kente, the fabric that has come to define the black race everywhere. And we lead in fashion on the continent. Our music is catchy and unforgettable, and the drums and rhythms make us stand out. So, Speaker, President of the Senate, in today's world, where sadly crime and terror have become part of everyday life, let me say that I'm able to assure you that Ghana remains a safe country. I can say without any hesitation that Ghana remains a safe and happy country, the safest in West Africa. Our police and security agencies work hard to keep Ghana an open and happy place, where we are not embarrassed to see ourselves as each other's keeper. I invite all Africans and descendants of Africa in the diaspora to come, explore, and experience Ghana in this year of return. We want to use this year of return as a bridge to build stronger ties between Ghana, those of us on the continent, and the African diaspora. To those of you who would want to come and stay, we say you're most welcome. Africa is your home, and Ghana would be happy to serve as the bridge between the diaspora and the African continent. But we're really not asking you to make another series of traumatic journeys. Many of you have made successful homes in the Caribbean islands, in the Americas. Brazil is your home, Guyana is your home, Cuba is your home, Barbados is your home. We invite you to come and visit Ghana in this year of return. After the launch of the year of return, we continued with the December 2018 Full Circle Festival, involving over 70 African American celebrities visiting Ghana to reconnect with their ancestral heritage. They were able to view Ghana and indeed in Africa from their own lenses, and were able to eat, feel, see, and wear Ghana. The Homecoming and Investment Summit, the African American Investment Forum, the Pan-African and Emancipation Day celebrations, the Durbar from Jamestown to Jamestown, the Film Festival, and the Full Circle Festival are some of the activities that will be held to commemorate the year-long event. President of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, I've left with the clerk for your attention several copies of the provisional program for the year of return, setting out the prospective dates and times for its activities. The commemoration should enable us in the African Union to consolidate and strengthen our links with our sixth region, i.e. the African diaspora of the so-called New World, which have laid somewhat dormant, and make operational and extend the free movement protocol to those in the diaspora seeking to settle in Africa. As we mark the 400th anniversary of the start of the transatlantic slave trade, come and visit, and let us together demonstrate that we have overcome. It says on the last door leading out of the dungeon from the slave castles that dot our coastline, door of no return. Let us show we can return. We have returned, and we have conquered the humiliation and degradation of 400 years ago. We in Africa and through us in the continent of Africa, we in Ghana and through us in the continent of Africa, are proud that you who were taken away have demonstrated such resilience and testified to the enduring strength of Africa in the diaspora. Together, we shall make Africa a place to be proud of, for we must all be aware by now that ultimately, all black people everywhere are judged by the success of Africa. As members of the Commonwealth and the United Nations, with governance structures that are respectful of human rights, the rule of law, and the principles of democratic accountability, Barbados and Ghana should continue to cooperate effectively at the international level to create a safer and more secure world. My delegation and I are grateful for the warm welcome we have received here in beautiful Barbados. Please come and sample Ghana. Make the return journey a happy and joyful one. The year of return awaits you all. Now is the time to engage each other positively and imbibe in ourselves a deep consciousness and understanding of the goals and history of the African peoples. May the Almighty bless the peoples of Barbados and Ghana and all the other peoples of the Caribbean and Africa. President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, I thank you very much for your attention.
Your Excellency, Dame Sandra Mason, Governor General, Prime Minister, and members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, Mr. Nana Akufo-Addo, distinguished President of the Great Republic of Ghana, the signal honor of replying to your interesting and impressive address at this joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament fall to me as President of the Senate. And I join the government and people of Barbados in welcoming you to our country. We are delighted to accord you the special privilege of being the first head of state or government to address a joint sitting of our Parliament. We have done so in recognition of the historical bonds between Barbados and Ghana. In fact, were a significant number of our people to trace their ancestry, they would find that they originated on the so-called Gold Coast or Slave Coast of Africa. Our countries, therefore, are joined by history and by blood. This recognition is particularly important this year as Ghana celebrates the year of the return, 400 years after the start of the slave trade with the arrival of Africans in Virginia in 1619. Indeed, your visit to Barbados and other Caribbean countries is integral to that celebration and to the acknowledgement that despite the divisions of time and distance, we are really kith and kin. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of the independent sovereign state of Ghana, taught many of our countries important lessons which we ought to bear in mind as we each sought our independence from colonial possession and exploitation. One of them was that the forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed forces that kept us apart. In learning from his wisdom, our country should indeed celebrate the single origin of our past and resolve to build a unity of purpose for our future. There is every reason why in carving our rightful place of respect and prosperity in the global community, the sons and daughters of Africa and the Caribbean should join hands in solidarity. You yourself, Excellency, have demonstrated that Africa should not continue to be demeaned, exploited, and used for the enrichment of others, but relate to one another for the enhancement of our own. You said on one occasion, sir, we have to get away from the mindset of dependency. Our concern should be what do we need to do in this 21st century to move away from being cap in hand and begging for aid, for charity, for handouts. We need to have a mindset that says we can do it. And once we have that mindset, we'll see it as a liberating factor for ourselves. Your Excellency, your address to this joint session of the Houses of Parliament has reinforced the salient message of our solidarity and benefits from our cooperation. There is strength in our solidarity and benefits, I repeat, to be derived from our cooperation. We thank you, sir, for holding up the torch and for lighting the way. We must now work collectively to tear down the walls of separation erected in the colonial era for the benefit of colonial metropoles. In their place, we must build bridges of economic cooperation, diplomatic collectivity, and political action that can create the tide that will lift all our boats, as it were, together. To quote another distinguished son of Ghana, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, more than ever before in human history, we share a common destiny. We can master it if only we face it together. Excellency, we thank you for standing up. We thank you for being counted. We thank you for raising your voice for us all. We thank you for honoring us with your visit and for your leadership.